So we are going to start with our next presenter, Dan Kim, who is going to talk to us about the core values of a successful startup. So without further ado, here's Dan.
Hello, I am Dan. I'm not really on social media, but in most cases, I am D Kim if you see me somewhere. For instance, GitHub. That's my handle on GitHub. So a little bit about me. I had initially planned this to be a little bit more of a case study, so trying to obfuscate some of the companies that I've worked for and the length that I've worked for them, just to keep my opinions a little bit less biased. I had worked for Startup A for around Y years before, already screwed up. All right, for Y years before getting acquired, and I stayed on for X years post-acquisition. I then started working up Startup B for Z years. Startup C, which I am currently at for about A years. Okay, got through that part. Python credentials, I know how to import a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And in terms of how many years of experience, some fuzzy math going on, but we'll just say somewhere between 14 and 30, because it sounds more official that way. I did say that I wanted to be unbiased, but I am sponsored to be here. So I did want to give a quick shout out to Zivian. That is their website. This is the most I will give you in terms of information. Happy to talk about it afterwards if you'd like, but they do healthcare compliance. Or I guess we do healthcare compliance. So what makes a startup actually work? I do not believe it's the amount of funding you have or the number of people you have. I've seen startups that have effectively infinite capital not succeed. It's the values that drive the long game, and even though it is a startup and a lot are short-lived, you still have to think about the long game if you're going to be successful. And the core values sort of drive that because it's actions that happen when no one's watching. So I'm going to cover 10 core values, not because I think that there should be 10 core values, because 10 is quite a bit. But I do believe that throughout the course of a startup, your core values will change, because what is effective with 3 people will not be effective with 10 people, nor will it be effective with 30 people, and so forth. And this is sort of the quote that I've seen used a lot, but I don't think this is a hard and fast rule. I just think it's a good sort of marker to sort of reevaluate your core values at that time. But they should be sort of a living document and values, because if you don't evolve them, they will just erode and not be used. Okay. So the first one, authenticity. Every time someone steps up and says who they are, the world becomes a better, more interesting place. So say thank you. This is a quote from the late Raymond Holt. I believe that you need to show your authentic self and be comfortable being who you are in any meeting, to express your concerns to even the leaders, right? And I think the leadership, it starts at the leadership level, where you have that level of freedom and backing to sort of say what's on your mind without like sort of the repercussions of you getting fired if you don't agree with what I'm trying to push or how I want to move the company, because in all honesty, you shouldn't be really hiring those type of people that are effectively just yes men that just tell you what you want to hear, because that's not super useful in the startup world, especially when you have limited capital and time, and you need to focus on what's actually important. So being authentic and unfiltered, I think, is a super huge part of that. 2, growth. This is from the great Dina Fox. I'm evolving like a moth into a slightly more attractive moth. So if you haven't seen the show, I'm not sure how much this makes sense, but Dina has always wanted to just stay an assistant manager, I believe. But even in her role, even if you want to stay in the same role, you still want to have some growth. You want to be continuously learning and expanding your skill sets and being challenged every day. And I think that as a startup, you need to provide this avenue in whatever way you see fits, whether it's putting people in scenarios where they're not as accustomed to, just give them more experience. But I think that creates a better bond and sort of buy-in into the company culture, and it sort of ties in more deeply into some of the other core values. Presence. I think depending on if you've ever worked at a startup or what the size of companies that you've worked for, you're not always paying attention in every meeting. And I think that when you have an all hands or something, regardless of the size, you should really be paying attention to what your founders are saying, because you are so much of the company. When it's 3 people, you're literally 33% of the company. And as the numbers grow, it becomes like less meaningful that you're present. But when you're present, you see opportunities, you notice things that become valuable. And you might not think it's true at the time, but there will always be opportunities for you to contribute at a startup, and you need to be present to see those opportunities. Okay. Trust. I don't always understand you, but I believe in you. Jared Dunn. It's so much easier to do good work and take risks when you have leadership that trusts you and teammates that trust you. If you're afraid to do something or call out something that you see as wrong, it's not the culture that will be successful in the long term, because as a startup, you just don't have the time or energy to play sort of like those kind of games where people are talking behind your back and blaming you for things that you weren't involved in. So trust is a very key thing, and I think it just makes your work so much easier to do when you just have teammates that trust you, that'll show up for you every day. And it's also, again, built daily. I think you should start with trust, but obviously the more and more you work together, that trust is going to build. So super important, obviously. Accountability by Dr. Cox. Take a moment to really reflect. What are you good at? What do you suck at? What needs work? Write it down not for anyone else, but for yourself. Because at the end of the day, the only person you truly have to answer to is you. Yeah, so this sort of ties into the next core value, I think, in terms of how I order it. But you don't want to create more work for your coworkers. You want to be able to contribute to your team. You want to be able to trust your coworkers in a way that if you deployed something, you're going to fix it if it breaks. And I understand that that's not how life always works. You can't be online 24/7, and that's where sort of I think the next one is teamwork comes into play. But at the end of the day, you have to be accountable for at least some of it in terms of the postmortems afterwards, helping out where you can, and so forth. Because the only person you truly have to answer to is yourself. Are you happy with the work that you do, and how you sort of step in for your teammates, I guess. Okay. The next one is teamwork. All right. This one is by the great Poppy Lee. Alone we're smart, but together we are brilliant. So this one, I say teamwork here, but I want to point out that like in the earlier stages of a startup, you want to find like a co-founder because this is Poppy and the co-founder relationship here, where you sort of complement your abilities, where you have gaps, and where you can work together, because you'll see solutions and patterns come together with different experiences, and that I've always seen just creates just a more fluid solution, because everyone is involved, everyone cares about what you're going for. It's not just one person telling another person what to do. So there's more buy-in, and I think it's very cyclic in that way. So you can't really have an ego, even though a lot of what Silicon Valley and TV shows portray as like the 10X engineer or whatever you want to call it. Balance. So balance, the great Leslie Knope once said that you should prioritize waffles, friends, and work in some order, regardless of what those things are in your life. The thing that actually matters is that work is last, because at the end of the day, we're human. You can just continuously work on story points and pushing through tickets, but that's not sustainable. You have to understand when to push and pull in a startup. Not every issue is a critical issue. And identifying that and having managers and leadership that understands that you can't always just be on fire all the time. That's not a path towards success. And there's various ways to sort of find this balance. Leslie talks about friends, work, and waffles, but whatever sort of balances you, work is always last. So this is the only core value where I use two words, because I often see grit being used as a core value, but it's not like the only thing. Michael Scott, quoting Wayne Gretzky, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." In startups, it's important to take risks and go out of your comfort zone to do things that you normally might not do, because there are basically no other options sometimes, whether it's clients or what the promises you make or whatever you have. You just have to do with the opportunities that you're given, because you might not necessarily get interviews with larger enterprises that Google might just walk in the door to. So you have to do the best you can with the opportunities that you have. And the second part of that, I think that you can do all of those things, but if you're not matching it with some sort of passion or something that you're interested in, and this goes back to like growth and wanting to do better and learn more things, there needs to be some sort of counterbalance to that. So either you're working on things that you're passionate about, learning new technology, whether it is AI or whether it's not AI, if you're passionate about that, but you have to have something either in work or outside of work that balances that grit. Because again, we're people. You can't just work all the time. Everything can't be the highest priority all the time. So, all right, gratitude. Thank you, Chef by Carmi. In startups, you move so fast a lot of the times, it's hard to sort of recognize the little things that people do on a day-to-day basis. And having some form of gratitude, how I've seen it done a lot, or not a lot, but in some instances is you have a Slack channel where you call someone out for something that they did for you, or it doesn't have to be like a huge client signing. Obviously, those are really important, but just like being there for your teammates every day and being grateful, because a lot of kitchen work is not super sexy, but everyone needs to work together to get that product or dish out. And just appreciating your teammates and all the hard work that they do is again, it makes things so much more easier and more fun. And I guess wait, I don't know if I did that right. Well, one of them is love. The core value is love. I just want to help people. Is that so crazy? Janine Teagues. So love is one that is I feel the most important, because it encompasses a lot of core values that I've seen at a higher level. One of the ones that I feel is very similar is like empathy and things like that, but understanding that at the end of the day, your coworkers are also human. They're your friends. They're people that you spend, to be honest with you, more time in traditional, before remote work, obviously, that you see more than your actual family, right? So treating people with love and care and understanding at the end of the day that everyone's trying to do the best that they can with what they have, I think is super important, because the numbers behind startups is that 90% fail, right? So what's the point? If you're gonna, I'm not saying that you shouldn't try, because 90% is not 10% is not a very good success rate, but so at the end of the day, it depends on what your definition of success is, right? Is it to make the most money? Is it to be there as a human for your friends? Is it to make the world a better place? I think all of those sort of ideals are encompassed in love. So that is, I guess, the one that I feel is one of the most valuable. And your tech will change, whether it's Python or Django or Flask or what have you. Your team will change as you grow. You'll have to add new people and have to come up with new processes. And the more you hire, it's not possible for you to find people that have all of these core values. So you have to be really, really intentional in curating the company that you have and the values you want to represent, because that is sort of how you're guided when you're not there. You're not, as a founder or a co-founder, you're not going to be able to oversee the actions of 99 other people in a 100-person company. So you want to make sure that everything is done in love, people are accountable, you're just, again, there for the people that you work with. And I think that, again, success is probably means something different to me than what it means to you. And it probably means something different depending on where you are in life. But I think that you can be successful and still fail. You can have failed as a company, but grown as a human. So yeah, it's, I guess, what I'll leave you with there. We're doing all the time. Okay. Just a quick thank you to Pyohio, I guess, because I only introduced one line of executable Python into this presentation. And yeah, if you're interested in me, I'm happy to talk to you after, or I guess I did reserve some time for a Q&A. So if you'd like to ask some questions now, but yeah, feel free. Yeah. Yeah, thank you.
We'll just do a couple questions.
What about in early stage startups, which I hear are much more of a commitment in terms of work and how much work needs to be done? Where do you find balance in those?
You don't. Earlier, to be completely truthful, you really don't. I would say that in the single digits, there's no getting around the late nights just because there's so few people working on it, right? I do believe that you, as a founder and number 10 employee, you can find balance, but you have to also find people that respect those boundaries. Because again, there will always be more clients, there will always be new features, but it's about the end game, or it's about the long game. So you can't just be on all the time. Regardless of who you are, there will be a point where you break if you do that. So that's the reason why I do not recommend it. I guess if you're really passionate about it, I don't strictly see a problem with it, but to enforce it on employee number 100 is completely broken.
So I think even though we have a bit more time, we can go ahead and close out here. And if anybody else has any additional questions, Dan, are you able to? Yeah, you can find him in the hallway here. So let's hear it again for Dan.